Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're just going to give it one more minute and see if anybody else joins us. But I want to thank you for taking the time to come and learn about the bond referendum that'll be on our ballot this year in the election for a potential aquatic center in Waukee. If you are on Zoom tonight and you have a question, feel free to type it into the question and answer section of your Zoom panel. We'll save most of them for the end. We do have a few of our more common questions that are already kind of built into our presentation tonight. But if you do need some clarification of something that we're talking about along the way, feel free to stick that in the Q&A or raise your hand in Zoom and we can unmute you to ask your question. Or if you're in the room, I have a mic, so I'll come around when it's time to ask questions. And then we are recording tonight's session so that we can post it. So just be aware that that's happening. And with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers and then we'll get started. So first up, we'll have Brad, our city administrator. On Zoom tonight, we have Kyle from Water's Edge, which is the group that helped us put together a feasibility study around this aquatic center. And then we have Matt, our Parks and Rec director. All right,
great.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Heather. Well, good evening, everyone. Just briefly, I'm Brad Dietz. I'm city administrator for the city of Waukee. And I just wanted to provide some very brief background relative to aquatics here in Waukee and discussions that have occurred and kind of where we're at today. It's not clicking here. Where am I pointing it to? Over here. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. So first of all, the intent of this session is truly to inform. It's not intended to persuade one way or the other relative to the vote, but really provide facts relative to this upcoming ballot measure on the ballot. So a little bit of background for the city of Waukee. We actually have gone out for a referendum in the past relative to aquatics. The last time that was completed was in 2010, where our population was just shy of 14,000 people. Today we set at, on this graphic, somewhere around 32,000 people. I would question, and maybe it's even a little bit higher, but we'll find out here soon. And so obviously from just that standpoint alone, our community has changed a lot over the last 15 years. And so this is certainly a different project than what was presented back in 2010. That vote did fail, 51% in support and 49% opposed. But that doesn't mean that the conversation stopped there. And our mayor and city council on a very regular basis do receive feedback relative to aquatics, and that's a desire improvement within the city of Waukee. And so that really led to that item being placed on our strategic planning process that's completed by the city council on an annual basis, which started down the path of working with Water's Edge on a feasibility study and really putting this proposal together before you tonight. So some of the questions that have been raised in the past is why are we proposing to put it where we're putting it, or where we would put it if it were approved? So the designated location, which I think we'll have additional conversation with later in this presentation, would be located west of 6th Street and south of what is the University Avenue extension. So familiar with this area, the Sugar Creek Golf Course is located to the east of this area, our Waukee Public Works, and then the school's bus facility is located just to the north. Well, why this location? So the map here on the right-hand side of your slide, that's a map that shows the long-term growth pattern within the city of Waukee. So long-term, as the city continues to annex property, as development occurs, those truly become our, if you will, final growth boundaries for the city of Waukee. And this location, if you look at that, really ends up being almost square in the middle of our long-term community. So in putting this location together, it was thought to try and centrally locate that, not only for today and today's residents, but really looking long-term into the future. We also own this property today, which is another deciding factor. It's part of a 240-acre parcel of ground that the city of Waukee owns. That is intended to be developed for additional public facilities and other amenities over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. So that's really the kind of the history and the background relative to not only past votes on aquatics, but also why we're here today and why we're proposing this at this location. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, like was mentioned, we might have somebody advance the slides if you don't mind.
Yep.
So Water's Edge did a pretty extensive feasibility study, and through that process of public engagement, concept development, stakeholder meetings, online surveys, this was the final design that was developed. So we're going to kind of walk through the different parts of it, just to give you a sense of the scope and scale, the different amenities that would be offered in this facility, and just give you a little more background of what the facility would entail. So all in, the pool or the facility has 22,600 square feet of water, and that's divided up into these different basins. So 4 different areas for people to move about and enjoy the water. That's a capacity of over 1,500 people, and based off of usage mapping and demand in the region, that's just at 94,000 anticipated visits throughout a summer season. And that season we're anticipating to be from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And as you can see here, the intent is to start in the fall of 2025, build through that fall and winter through 2026, and have it up and operational in 2027. So let's focus on what we would call the leisure or the kid pool. So this pool is about 7,100 square feet and has a variety of different amenities. The intent was to try to give a broad breadth of different features for different age groups, for different ability levels. So this pool starts at 0 depth and it goes down to approximately 4 feet. And so it's got a nice broad open area for kids to walk in, enjoy the water. In that shallow water, there'd be sprays or water slides, a shaded bench area. And then as you progress into the deeper section of the pool, it gets a little more active. So you have different water slides that are available and different amenities like basketball that can be played in. Next to that is the lazy river. So the lazy river is 11,500 square feet. So the width of it is 10 feet. So tubes can go through that. And along the outside of the river are a bunch of different amenities like water slides, shade canopies, shaded areas, and potential rental spaces for guests. One of the really unique parts of this project is the splash pad. So the intent right near the building, the entrance of the building, is an ADA accessible splash pad. So that's about 3,000 square feet of water. It'd be, or excuse me, 3,000 square feet. There's no standing water, but it'd be accessible for people with disabilities. There's nice ramps coming up to this play structure. Then once on the play structures, there's just a variety of different amenities, water dumping buckets, spray cannons, different nozzles that are very interactive for kids of all ages. Here's some just images of what that potentially could look like. You can see that ramp area, a nice tall feature could be had on top of it with a dumping bucket feature that throws a lot of water out and is really exciting for the kids. Here's some images of that shallow water play area and just the different kinds of amenities that can go in. So toddler slides that are just a few, 2 feet or so above the water, nice and gradual. And then progressing up from there, a little larger fiberglass slides that kids with a little more ability can go down, and you're getting into a little deeper water, 2 or 3 feet of depth. And then the basketball goals in that deeper section, 3.5 feet. Some more images of the potential lazy river. So on the top, you can see tubes going around. That's the design intent here, multiple tubes, whether it's single rider or double riders, with shade, spaces inside the river that people can relax under. Also inside the river will be the intent is a potential deep water pool, so diving boards in that area. And then the bottom images are stuff you can just give you an idea of shade canopies that would be over the river, and then potential for rental cabanas along the river itself, so that people can rent that space out and relax by the river. Here's some examples of the water slides. So they're fiberglass slides. These are the lot bigger slides. So you got to be 48 inches or greater to ride down these. Open flume, they can be enclosed flume, and they can also have inner tubes go down. So a lot of variety we can get in that. Again, the inside that lazy river would be a deep water area. So diving boards and a jumping platform is planned in that area. One of the other unique features about this is the lap pool. So pulled to the south and to the west, a little away from that high activity area, is a lap pool. So it's long enough for lap swimming. The intent is to be about 3.5 feet deep to 5 feet. So this can be used a number of different ways. It can be a nice relaxing space, kind of away from the hustle and bustle of the big active areas. And it could also be used for water aerobics, swim lessons, and just different types of programming that maybe doesn't need that full space of the big part of the pool, the big part of the facility. It can be managed up in this quieter area. Throughout the entire facility, there'll be a variety of different shade and seating areas. So shade inside the pool, give people that are in the water a place to relax and get out of that sun. Shade around the perimeter, at the concession area, or rental spaces around the river. And then also just a variety of different areas that would be landscaped with potential grass or minimal maintenance plants around, just to kind of soften the edges so it's not all full concrete from fence to fence. One question that we got was water usage. And, so after we laid out the facility, one of the efforts that we did was we estimated the water consumption. So we looked at a variety of different things: water that's lost from evaporation and splash out, water that's lost through just usage of hosing things down and the changing areas, the showers, the toilets, the sinks, all those type of things. That's estimated, and the projected water amount is 10 to 15,000 gallons a day. And being as sensitive as we can to just the demands that are used to run these facilities, is we fully intend, design intentive is to be as efficient with pumps and filters and all electrical capacity. So using LED lighting, using pumps with drives that reduce the power consumption, using filtration systems that reduce the water consumption, that reduce the waste that's produced. And then also, as a benefit of that, is the less water we send to the sewer, the less chemicals we have to put in there. So just kind of finding those opportunities to add as many types of pieces of equipment that are going to just optimize the utilities and the water being used for the park. So just kind of some of the, Matt, did you want to go?
Either you can take this one.
you can fill in the gaps that I miss. Sorry about that. So in addition to part of the feasibility study of doing that engagement, getting that feedback, generating these concepts, analyzing the cost to build, another important part of it was the cost to operate. So we looked at two things: potential revenue and potential expenditure. So revenue is going to look at seasonal passes, daily passes, rental opportunities, concessions, and then classes and programs. So water aerobics, swim lessons, those kind of programs on a facility this size, utilizing data for, facilities within the region and the price points there. Then also looking at expenditures. So how many lifeguards does it take to operate? What chemical and power and water usages are going to be used and cost to operate these facilities? So you can see annual potential revenue is 435,000 to 644. Potential expenditures is 550, 545 and to 678. So
Okay. So the overall project cost, so when we're looking at the overall project cost, we have the cost of the land. The city already owns the land. Brad talked about that as far as the civic campus. Right now, we're carrying a budget of 33 million for design, site work, and construction of the facility, taking into account inflation and whatnot. So the bond referendum is for up to 35 million to allow for those increases as we get a little closer to the actual bidding date. So our funding model is 60% would come from the increase to city tax levy via your property tax. 30% would come from the current levy revenues, and 10% would come from other sources such as your local option or the local option sales tax and the public improvement fund with Apple. So on our website and throughout this presentation, we've tried to put together a little formula here so that anybody that's wondering what it could do to their taxes, you can see that it's roughly $34 per 100,000 valuation of your home. And so you can punch in the valuation of your home and then identify how much an increase in tax it would be for your household. So on our example there, $350,000 valuation home of your home, it would be approximately $119 increase on your annual property taxes. So on this slide, we've provided what you'll see the night you go and vote. It gives you the example of the exact language of the bonds not to exceed 35 million. And then the other measures that will be located within that and under the local questions section if you live here in Waukee. This, as stated a little bit ago, this does require a 60% vote in order for it to approve. Some of the other questions that we've received throughout this process would be, what would it cost to use the Aquatic Center? So the exact fees are yet to be determined, but we know that we're going to have to be competitive with our surrounding neighbors who also have aquatic centers. So those rates that you see over in Clive and West Des Moines are going to be similar to what we're going to have. Now, with that being said, we're still 2 years out. So to determine the exact fees at this point is still unknown. But as far as the study, the feasibility study currently in our surrounding area, $100 for an individual, $225 for a family. And most of those communities, as well as the city of Waukee, we do anticipate there being a higher rate for non-residents. So currently our Waukee residents are paying a non-resident fee for season passes to utilize those facilities. Next question is, how would the city staff an aquatic center? So as part of the feasibility study, Water's Edge provided us, there were estimated 25 to 33 staff members on at one time. So there's regulations that require us to have people at the top of each slide, at the bottom of each slide, and throughout the pool deck. So on an average staff for a day would include those numbers there. We anticipate it will take anywhere from 50 to 75 staff each year to staff an aquatic center of this size. And the reason why I give you a pretty wide range there is over the last couple of years, what we're finding is a lot of our younger staff are not wanting to work 8-hour days. They're wanting to work multiple 4-hour days. So ultimately, we'll have to weigh that and determine how many guards we need to fill all the hours. We kind of, Kyle touched on programs. You know, we will have a lot of the same programs as our neighboring communities have, but we'll be looking at other creative ways to program this facility. Swim lessons was the top priority when we were going through the feasibility study and the survey. Water fitness, birthday parties and private events, as well as adult programs such as water walking and those water aerobics. And then the last thing was rental facilities. People are wanting a facility that they could have a birthday party at and or rent out the facility for a much larger gathering.
Okay, thanks, Matt. We'll take questions. So if you're on Zoom and you have a question, feel free to type it into that Q&A panel. Or you can do the raised hand icon and we can unmute you. And if there's folks in the room that have a question, just kind of raise your hand a little bit and I will come around for the mic. But I will say that the first question that we had submitted in advance was, will the city be willing to adjust employee hours and job duties to cover any staffing shortfalls to keep the aquatic center open?
So not knowing the whole question or not having that person in the room here, we're going to adjust our staffing levels. We've talked about that as it relates to even if we had to adjust certain locations based on capacity. Say, we have abilities to shut portions of this facility down if need be, but that would be anticipated as a situation where on a cloudy day or whatnot, we would have the ability to close that down. But as it relates to shortening hours in that case, our intentions are to staff accordingly. We've made it work out at Triumph Park as it relates to hiring enough staff to avoid those situations where we have to reduce hours.
Okay, great. We had a question on Zoom. Are there any other sites being considered, and were there any plans for the land before the aquatic center came up?
This is the only site that's being considered for this project. So if it were to pass, it would move forward at this location. This property was purchased relatively, let's say, in the last 5 years, part of the 240 acre parcel. And it's been on the priority list for the city council to master plan this as a much more comprehensive civic campus over a period of time, looking at new public facilities as well as expansion of the golf course, recreational amenities and so forth. So while it wasn't initially perhaps included in the initial vision for this area, it certainly is suitable and fits within the parameters of the 240 acres. One thing that I will point out too is today, obviously University Avenue doesn't extend through to this property. But over the next 4 years, there will be various phases of projects that will include the expansion of University Avenue, extending from where it ends today at Warrior Lane over to this site, with the first phase actually starting this upcoming spring. In addition, obviously, to the road expansion, there's a significant amount of trail work that will also be extended, including trails as well as underpasses underneath 6th Street and along University Avenue, with the intent that long-term this area would be very much pedestrian friendly and oriented for walkers or bicyclists. Obviously, that may not all be in place day one, but certainly it's in the plans over the next 5 to 10 years to continue to incorporate additional trails that would serve this site.
Does anyone in the room have a question?
How many years will the bond?
Hold on one sec. Just so the folks in Zoom can hear you too.
How many years will the bond be on our taxes?
I'm gonna let Brad answer that one.
Yeah, we typically do a 20-year bond. The other thing I would say too is also got to keep in mind that we've really made these projections based upon the valuation of the city of Waukee today, because as much as we like to predict, we certainly wouldn't want to put anything out there that was more than what we know today. So these are based upon today's valuations. We know, obviously, we think we're going to continue to grow at a fairly rapid pace, which in turn, it also may lower that cost on an annual basis, just depending upon how much valuation is created and added to the city.
Any other questions in the room right now? Okay, any folks on Zoom have another question? Feel free to type that in. Okay, well, I'll give people a minute just to think. Also, you can see your ballot at dallascountyoiowa.gov. So if you want to see where this question is and anything else you want to vote on, that would be a good place to check. And also all the information we covered tonight, as well as some additional kind of specific questions, you can find that at waukee.org/aquatic center. And so I encourage you to read through that as well as a reference. But it doesn't look like we have any more questions tonight, so I think we'll wrap it up. If you do think of something later, feel free to reach out. You can always reach us at communications@waukee.org.